For the past month or so, I realized that I have been living literally for Sunday night at 9 o'clock. Every moment is, well, how long until Game of Thrones starts? How long do I have to get ready for this and prepare for this? Because this is something I've invested an enormous amount of time in. And so I'm listening to podcasts to get my... to just pass the time. And my son has been listening to this Game of Thrones podcast by Bald Move, I don't know for how long. And so I start listening to it, and I hear one of the guys say, yeah, well, we're in Cincinnati, and I literally nearly wrecked my car. And I was like, what? Wait a minute, because I'm totally invested in these people. And so I decided, you know what, we're going to look them up. We looked you guys up. And so that's why we are sitting here as we are on the precipice of the very last episode of this really amazing show, Game of Thrones. We thought it'd be fun to sit down with the two guys who are the podcasters of Game of Thrones and talk to you about how you got, kind of where you guys are, what you guys are doing, why you do this stuff, but also talk about a little bit about the last episode, which, breaks my heart. And then the next episode, which of course is the last one and what we think is going to happen. So I wanted to bring along a cast of characters with me. So Kenan Oliphant is our assistant news director here at WCPO. Kristen Swilley is a reporter, fantastic, for our 11 o'clock show. And let me introduce our guests, of course. A.Ron Hubbard and Jim Jones from Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones podcast by Bald Move. Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having us on.
I guess I should say I'm Tanya O'Rourke at some point in this. Hi. And by day, I'm a news anchor. So, guys, seriously, you got started by chance doing podcasts together as just buddies, right? Mm-hmm. And how does a podcasting duo turn into a broad? You guys are making money doing this. Uh-huh. How does this occur?
I wish I knew. I'd probably write a book or sell advice on to people and make even more money. It's just we started this. We started podcasting as a way to keep in touch when Jim was moving to Chicago, and we were just doing the stereotypical two dudes talking about movies and video games and whatever. And it wasn't very successful. We got a couple hundred people listening to us after 2 years. And when he moved back from Chicago, he actually moved in with me, and so we were roommates again. And we're like, yeah, this is, but whatever. And we were thinking about stopping, and the one thing we were doing consistently is we watched a lot of television together, and we would spend an hour, after Mad Men was over, Breaking Bad was kind of our jams. We would discuss it. And we had an idea of let's just put this as let's just do this in front of the microphones and see if we capture an audience. And we did that beginning with Breaking Bad season 4, and our first episode in 24 hours got 5,000 people downloaded it, and we're like, hey, this might be something that we can build into something. So that's
when this is something we can do.
Yeah.
Because you guys have now, this is your full-time job, right,
Mm-hmm.
Jim?
It is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so how many hours a week are you podcasting? Because you do multiple different shows. How many different shows you guys into?
In any given week, we do at least 5 podcasts, and that's for the public, and also we have a club that people can join to get premium content. So we're kind of supporting both of those angles, but we're also, business owners. So any given week, we spend well more than 40 hours, I'm sure, just watching all the TV you have to watch, because you have to watch the episodes multiple times to really let it sink in and formulate your thoughts so you can be informed, and you have to do a lot of research.
Right.
So
feedback, we get almost 1,000 messages in a 24-hour period between Sunday night and Monday that we have to go through, process, decide who we're going to read, not to say all this, not to mention all the stuff we get on social media. And when Game of Thrones, a big show like this, we devote even extra time. On Sunday night, we do the Instant Take podcast as soon as the episode's over. Then Tuesday, we have the full coverage. And then Friday, we have what we call the spoiler edition, where it started off as something just for book fans, people that have read all the books, so we could talk about all the theories and the prophecies and just the lore and the cultures and religions and geography. And it's, now that the books have been caught up to and surpassed by the television show, it's more of just talking about the lore and the extra stuff that maybe just TV only watchers don't care about. But we do 5 or 6 hours a week of Game of Thrones coverage, which is unusual. We only do that for the big, we do that for the Better Call Sauls. We used to do that for The Walking Dead, where we have multiple podcasts. But we've probably got 30 plus different podcasts for various shows.
I love that's to hear that's your process, because I think a lot of people think, I could just talk about anything in front of a microphone and do very little research. And just to hear your perspective of how you put this whole thing together is really interesting.
Yeah,
because you didn't start out this way. I mean, you said you guys
started
were
off as just
programmers first, and then got into podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a hobby at first, and then it kind of just naturally, organically turned into this thing that we could do full time. But yeah, we always take care to put a lot of effort and thought and research into our shows, because we know that makes a better show. We could get on the microphones and we could just say whatever comes to our head in any given moment, but I think that's what the fans can do amongst themselves, and they have friends. Like, everybody's watching Game of Thrones, right? So they have friends they can do that with. What they want is a detailed breakdown of the episode, and an analysis of what's going on, why these characters are doing things, and that's what we try to bring.
Yeah, because I was stunned, like, even in this last podcast that I listened to, that you broke down the bells, and you were saying, and I did not catch this, I don't know if you two did, that... Was I hearing this correctly, that you were saying, and I don't want to get into, we're not starting this portion yet, but that you get so detailed, like, I didn't realize that Varys was trying to poison
it was very
Daenerys.
subtle. Yeah.
It was so subtle, but how many times do you watch a show before you podcast about it?
At least 2, sometimes 3 or 4 times if it's like a big, because like especially when you get an episode like the last episode of Game of Thrones where the fan base is going to civil war about it, like it's the best ever, it's the worst ever. Like, you really want to make sure you've thought about it and have your I's dotted or your T's crossed, because people care a lot about their fiction. So I watched it more times than usual, and then some scenes, like especially some particular scenes, will break through and like, what is Dany feeling here? Or this look between her and Grey Worm, because people send this, you get all these other takes, and I'll be in the middle of an email and someone asserts that like, oh, well, Dany and Grey Worm had a little secret signal between them. I'm like, do I buy this? Freeze frame. Nah, I don't buy this. So it's that kind of process too.
How much do you get into, because I dive into Reddit and everything else, do you try and purposely separate yourself from that, or do you just absorb everything and then start before you go into your podcast?
I think we would miss a lot of stuff if we didn't go to Reddit. Reddit is like a great resource for people who want to have a discussion, but also want to pick out those finer details, like Varys potentially poisoning Dany. That's the kind of stuff that I think I would miss even as a watcher, because it's so subtle. So yeah, we try and read a broad swath of like reviews from professional critics, of fans talking on forums like Reddit, and even our own forums on our website, and we try to synthesize that into something that makes sense in the viewing experience we had with it, and then glean those details.
Yeah, I don't know what your process is, but I try to like do my first 2 watches and like my notes that has like my own thoughts and get that like concrete. Then I go out and look for the other perspective. So because what I don't want to do is like cabbage on to other thoughts and be like, well, I thought this and I thought. So like if I state something that helps me keep, I guess I stay honest, because I've got all my notes, and then when I add on like, oh, this is a cool theory from Reddit, I can say I saw this on Reddit, or shout out to Redditor, or give a particular person to send in feedback credit for the ideas. So that way, it's like, we do all that, we read all this stuff so that the average person doesn't have to. Like, it's a way to get 15 to 20 hours of Game of Thrones research in an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
Do you ever hate it? Like, do you decide, I hate this show? I mean, I know right now you're not happy with Game of Thrones and the way this season has gone, but do you ever feel like, I'm so done with this series we're podcasting about, I just want to be done?
We stopped doing our Walking Dead podcast after season 8, season 9. I can't remember, because that show just got so bad.
That's what I was saying. That's a show that was so heartbreaking to just kind of let go of.
Yes.
It was, but we had to at some
imagine
point.
Trying to podcast about it now.
No, it just got to the point where all we were doing was making fun of it. We had an audience for that. We had a pretty big audience for that, but it was weighing on me that I was promoting this show, essentially, that I didn't enjoy watching. I thought was a bad show.
Right.
And so, yeah, we quit.
And I think that's the challenge. Like, when I like a show, it is very fun. Like, this is essentially the Omega version of what I like to do as a fan, which is have, you want to have a smart couple buddies to talk to about around the water cooler. Well, we have like 100,000 smart buddies that send us little tidbits and stuff about some of our favorite shows. And that's a lot of fun. But sometimes when there's an arc that I don't care about, or a show is kind of having, like season 2 of Mr. Robot struggled a bit. I remember that. And we're like, oh, this kind of, it's not fun, because you still got, you're making a podcast for fans, and the fans don't like it when you're crapping on something. So we
How many
that
people
becomes not fun.
How many people are listening to your? Let's take the Game of Thrones podcast. How many listeners do you guys have? You obviously can track it. So
Right. This season we're averaging just over 300,000 a week for the shows.
It's by far our biggest show, too. I don't want to make it like every one of our shows gets that many people, but Game of Thrones is big.
Have you ever heard from one of the cast members or any of the writers or anything?
No,
I mean,
we've
they
been
gotta
to-
be. They're listening.
They might be out there.
We have like some goes like we do the thing an annual award show called the Baldies. Where we give fake awards out to like our favorite actors and actresses, and like Carrie Coons, who starred in The Leftovers, who we loved, we awarded her a Baldies, and she accepted it on Twitter, which was kind of fun.
That's great.
Yeah. We've also had like one of the editors of Mad Men like wrote in, and we did an interview with him. We've been friendly with some of the writers, more the below the line types, like a couple of people that worked in FX shops that worked on Game of Thrones in previous seasons have sent us like demo reels of how they did the effects, and that's kind of cool. But we actually try to maintain a bit of a distance because you get too insider and then you stop talking like fans, you start talking like an insider, and then like, oh, I don't know if I want to say this because I might hurt Dan and Dave's feelings, you know. It's like,
you don't always like them, so
No,
and I guess if you two met them and had dinner with them, you'd have a hard time.
And we've had a lot of friends that do kind of go that route with a lot of interviews, and we've talked to them at like cons and other things where it's like, man, it feels a lot of pressure when you don't like something, but you know you're going to interview them and you're going to blow up their show like a day before you get on the phone with them. It's like I don't like to worry about. I just like to worry about like what I feel like as a fan and how I think the community is reacting, and then everybody else can cry themselves, console themselves on the beach with all their money and fame.
That's so good because it keeps it pure, and maybe that's
Yeah.
why you're the preeminent Game of Thrones podcast.
That's
We
part
do
of
that
it.
shows.
I think, the honesty that we bring to our commentary, I think is very important to what we do.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself? I mean, this is just it. You're just going to keep going. I mean, what do you do after Game of Thrones ends? It has been sort of the big podcast for you. I know you have others, but just look for that next thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be prequels to Game of Thrones. The HBO is going to be making. There's always, I mean, Game of Thrones is the 800-pound gorilla. There's something like 150 million people worldwide watching it in any given week, and I don't know that we'll ever see that again. But like that's been said so many times. Like I remember when Sopranos went off the air, when Breaking Bad went off the air, when like, oh my God, what's the water cooler television? It seems like we all kind of pool around something to watch. Maybe it'll be something that's not out yet, like The Watchmen, or maybe it'll be like the sci-fi, or used to be sci-fi, now it's Amazon, The Expanse, which is very much like Game of Thrones in space. Maybe that will blow up this year.
Could you please podcast about a show on ABC so we can get more viewers? Especially a 10 o'clock show would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be really, we would really appreciate that as the 11 o'clock crew. I guess if it's okay, like, do you want to start talking about
let's
last
do it.
episode? You good
Okay.
for that?
Yeah,
I think
right.
we're all chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Oh, sure.
Let's start with last episode, like what you thought, like, or leading up to this episode. I should
Well,
say.
I know the big overwhelming feeling that everyone has is everyone just feels so personally destroyed by Daenerys's character arc. I am, to be honest, I'm a 100% show watcher, not a book reader. So
Me too.
just transparency.
reader.
Me three. I'm a show watcher.
Show watcher.
I'm
right?
book reader.
Yeah.
Super.
I hate the idea of everyone's saying that feels rushed, and I agree with that. And that's a huge sin to have this kind of what feels like a very abrupt turn. I am so much more hurt by throwing away Jaime's character arc.
Thank you.
Completely way more hurt by that, because if that's what he was ultimately going to do with coming back and not killing Cersei, then why even have him survive the long night? Like, why even have him live through the Battle of Winterfell only to come back and do nothing? I will give them credit, like I will give D&D credit if they were trying to be surprising and subversive or whatever else. They got that, but I think one of our other fans in the newsroom was like, you can surprise me once, but you can make me angry forever.
Right.
And that's
Well,
kind of where I am with that. Like, why?
But there was that one point, and you guys are the experts, so correct me when I'm wrong when I say when Jaime was in Dorne, and I forget who he was talking to, but he was asked, how would you like to die? I'm paraphrasing, right?
Yeah.
He said, in the arms of the person that I love.
Right.
And that kind of like,
I forgot about that.
when I saw that, I was like, oh, because he got stabbed twice in the kidney.
No.
It's like, I'm like,
Cersei was supposed to die at the hands of her little brother. It was supposed to be Jaime. I mean, this is the way it was supposed to go.
You're not wrong. As a book reader, I can totally understand why you would say that. But in the show, that prophecy didn't exist in the show, right? That part of the prophecy.
Didn't they talk?
Yeah,
I mean, am
Maggie
I crazy?
the Frog
Didn't they
didn't
talk
say
of
that.
Maggie the Frog's prophecy about her children dying? Did they not talk about that in the show?
They actually left out the Valonqar part, which you're referring to.
Right, which is the little brother portion of that.
Okay,
yeah.
but they did talk about the 3 children dying.
Yes.
Because I remember Cersei having like this moment where she talks about it.
But prophecies or no, I think that like you have a character arc, and I feel like Jaime was on a particular kind of redemptive arc, and I felt like it sealed the deal when him and Brienne hooked up in the previous episode. And
I was unhappy about it.
Like they were showing that this was kind of like that he has redeemed himself, and my debate was whether he was going to live, because like, you can redeem yourself to a certain extent, but you still threw a child out a window, and you still beat your cousin to death, and But the thing that disturbed me most is his assertion in this latest episode that he doesn't care about the little people, when his defining arc was to throw away his honor to save those same people. And I'm like, it's fine, because like the Double D's were our name for the showrunners, Dan and Dave, Daniel, DB Weiss and Daniel Benioff.
Why do I know this?
They talk a mess about him being addicted to Cersei, and I guess that's fine. It's just that where he rejected the fact that like, I don't care about the innocence. That felt like a betrayal of what they were trying. Like, it no longer felt like a character arc. It felt like a character circle.
I felt like
he's
he was
back
putting
to
it
being
on.
the self-absorbed, all about Cersei, Jaime Lannister.
See, I think he should have gone in saying, I'm going to kill Cersei, and then in the final moment, hands around her throat, couldn't do it because he loved her too much, and she has his baby in her belly and the whole icky thing.
Or if they get to where and it looks like King's Landing is just crumbling around, and he's like, what's the point?
Right, then she's going to die anyway.
Yeah, like and then I thought when he said I'm hateful like her, like the hateful thing to do would be to go ahead and choke her to death, but like maybe he would, when it doesn't really matter anymore, choose mercy for this broken, damaged, desperate individual who's now Cersei's she's just like anyone else, afraid of dying, right? But yeah, the whole I just love Cersei and can't get enough of her, and I don't care about little
and what's
people.
the lesson in this too for both Daenerys and for Jaime? It's like the messages are you're doomed to become your family or your parents, and you can't be redeemed. And I know other characters have been. Theon was redeemed and had a very nice. I was very fine with how he ended.
I was great with that.
But yeah, for those 2 particular characters, like, I've been on team not as emotionally attached to Jon and Daenerys, just because I don't think they have any chemistry. That's not an unpopular or unique opinion at all.
Did they?
No, they super rushed that.
Like they said, I love you, but they never showed it.
Yeah, and I guess that's just supposed to be a mutual attraction based on like, look how cool we are, look how cool we both are, but like.
And maybe they didn't need to state it. I just feel like when he rejected her advances in the last episode, I thought he needed to say, Danny, I love you, but I can't. I can't. You're my aunt or something like that.
Have
something
that
normal.
conversation.
Something where it was like, I can't do it. I want to, but I can't. And have her be like, well, then fine, I'm going to kill everybody or whatever.
So this is the problem, I think, with this last episode, and with kind of season 8 as a whole. Every tweak that you're suggesting here, all would have sold it to me. Like every single thing you're suggesting makes it work. They just didn't quite connect the dots on any of those plot points.
And isn't that the biggest sin? I'm so sorry. Isn't that the biggest sin? Is just like having all the tools and all the cinematography and all all the acting and everything.
The money
and all
and
the
talent
time.
And the time.
The time.
And isn't that the bigger cardinal sin is that we've had 2 years, right, of predicting and waiting. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it was never going to be enough for so many people.
Yeah.
But I'm not even that heavy of a critic of the show. Like I came into it completely eyes open, wanting to love the final season, and so many minor things, minor looks, minor lines that would have been free to change and could have made it just completely elevated the show, just weren't there.
I totally agree with you. And the one of my favorite episodes ever was during the season. That's I think it was the second or third where they were around the fireplace and Brienne was knighted. That I loved that. Because I'm a lover of dialogue, of witty dialogue, great moments between characters, not necessarily battle scenes. And I know that there are a lot of battle scene people out there who are like, oh, I hope it's the most it's going to be 48 minutes of battle. And I'm like, oh, it's exhausting. But I love like that they would break up the battles with these moments. So that was perhaps my favorite episode that I can recall.
Yeah.
And then everything else just was sort of like, why?
What's interesting is like the showrunners, they revealed in an interview that HBO offered them, hey, we'll let you have 10 episodes for this final season. And they said, we got it in 6. And it's hard to look at some of the stuff that's happened in the last few weeks and not think, ooh, boy, you could have used another 30 minutes of screen time to have that conversation with John and Danny, to figure out a better way to, take out Danny's remaining dragons and just, just some sloppy stuff. Like, how many, raise your hand if you thought the Dothraki were just wiped out after the Battle of Winterfell. Like, I mean, I saw a whole bunch of torches go into darkness, and all the torches get extinguished. I saw like 4 dudes and Jorah come back, and then the next episode it's like we've lost half of our.
I was like half. How's that possible?
Half, okay, half, and then it's like, and that's always been an issue because I feel like even Martin himself does not do logistics very well. Like, Euron's niece Yara steals his whole fleet. And he goes, I'll build 1,000 ships. And then literally the next episode, there's 1,000 ships. Like, you couldn't make them that fast if they're made out of Legos. But there's a lot of that. Like, it's always just like, oh, we got 10,000 dudes and 10,000 dudes. And, oh, you got 25,000? Well, just so happens there'll be only 25,000 from our guys to survive. So we'll have... They've never really excelled at doing the, like, nitty-gritty battles, tactics, logistics, how are you going to feed people, how are you going to pay for things. But it's been... pretty
a dragon coming from behind in a city that should have been well fortified because you knew a battle was coming. And I was just like, what?
Only being that clever now, too. Like, now that the other 2 dragons are dead, it's like, oh, maybe we should figure out how dragons work and maybe go around the back. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
It does beg the question, is winter over?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yes.
I mean,
I'm sure they will get cold
Winter
weather
has
and
ended?
snow, but that kind of winter is definitely over.
All of Westeros is going to be Miami-Dade County.
There you go.
It's going to be palm trees and saying, just wait. Just give it a couple years.
Well, speaking of moments, you were talking about you love dialogue, you love moments. In the last episode, the moment between Jaime and Tyrion when he was freeing Jaime.
I liked that.
That was great.
That brought tears in my eyes, and I don't tear up. And just thinking about that, I'm like, oh, I think about my own brother and how much I love him, and Jaime protecting Tyrion for as long as he did, and I just love that whole
symmetry
thing.
between Jaime risking his life and reputation to free Tyrion back in, what was that, season 4, and then now Tyrion's paying it back. Not just that, but like you said, he said, I wouldn't have survived my childhood if it weren't for you. That was really that's an earned moment.
But he shouldn't have wanted him to go back and save Cersei, kill her so that we can ring the bells. And
I just don't think he thought he could convince Jaime of that. Tell Jaime, oh, kill Cersei, this woman you've loved your entire life. I don't think that was the moment for him to say that.
I still think that Cersei, and I know I'm beating this dead horse, and I got to talk about the horse. I'm not sure what the horse means, but Cersei deserved a worse death in some way.
Absolutely.
Or just a more epic death. What an epic villain. What an incredible actor.
She'd have gone out like a whimper.
Yeah.
Death by bricks or by rocks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, what did the white horse mean with Arya? Did it have a meaning? Because I
was hoping you could tell
it?
me. You said before this interview that you'd tell us what you thought the horse meant.
I did?
No, you didn't. Sorry, I put you on the spot.
He sold it.
He's trying to little finger you.
Okay.
Pulling out the lies in this direction.
I was very curious about that. Hey, Brian, will you hand me one of those books when you get a chance?
Are we leaning on the biblical interpretation of the horse? Is that
on a pale horse rides death kind of thing? It seems to me that they're trying to tell the story of Arya, who is at the precipice of, even though she's given a lot of her innocence in the previous 7 seasons, and she's pursuing this course of vengeance, is that the Hound successfully said, look at me, do you want to be me? No, you need to get out of here and live the rest of your life. And I feel like, white always kind of symbolizes, purity and innocence and peace, and her deliberately choosing that over this death-based vengeance kind of cult that she'd found herself into. I think that's what they're going for, but there again, I don't know if that moment felt earned.
But so what is she gonna do? Put a face on, kill Daenerys, and then go live with Gendry?
And
I think
see,
she was going to
maybe-
die, but now
think
it's
she's
like,
gonna
yeah,
die.
she's going to put on a pretty dress and go up to Gendry like, I'm ready to be Lady of Storm's Inn. Show me the
Yeah.
needlepoint and the quilting. I'm ready to
No, that
hang
She
up
knows
my
to use the
Valerian
pointy end
dagger.
anyway.
And yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Did that clear the way then for it to be a little bit more book based again, from what I've heard, and to have Jon kill Daenerys after, like, in the process of saving Tyrion, like she's gonna put Tyrion
Yeah.
to death, and then at the last minute he comes in and stabs her and kills her.
This is still called the Song of Ice and Fire, the series, and they have identified Dany as fire and Jon as ice. So it seems like if there's going to be someone to end the threat of the Mad Queen Daenerys, it has to be Jon. But are we ready? Are we ready for Jon to kill Dany? Are we ready for that?
See, here I keep thinking, and I guess we're sort of transitioning towards what's going to happen. Jon can ride a dragon. Someone has to get rid of the damn dragon, or else, Daenerys without a dragon is just a young girl
Right.
with, maybe a couple Unsullied left.
Right.
Oh, wait, and hordes of Dothraki who
Right,
will
right.
Magical
everyone
Dothraki.
died in King's Landing except her entire army,
Yeah.
probably. But without a dragon, she's kind of powerless. She's powerless. She's not the mother of dragons anymore. She's not the unbaked.
Yeah.
But so I think he has to get on that dragon and cut its throat off midair or something, drop to the earth. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough with the dragon there. How does Jon get close enough to? I don't know. My prediction is that Jon will somehow kill Daenerys. But you're right. Like, what happens to the dragon? Because does the dragon accept Jon because he's a Targaryen, or is he just mad because he killed his mom? Is like, it's such a weird. It's hard to imagine Westeros with just one dragon because it's like someone having one nuke. Like they're like it almost makes them a demigod. And that kind of power has to corrupt, and I feel like that's something that's like a theme for Martin, because Dany turning the dark side is very on brand for Martin, and this whole.
I agree. I don't have as much problem as you do with it.
Right, and Martin's a committed pacifist. Like, he was a conscientious objector back in Vietnam, and he's like steady. He has a very clear thoroughput of like how he feels war corrupts everybody that participates in it. So like that, but that means that like. A lot of people who were warriors in the show are probably not going to have satisfying ends. Like, if Jon kills Dany, you got to imagine that's going to take whatever piece of who he
away.
was and kind of wad it up and throw. So what does he do after that? Does he sit on the Iron Throne? Is he going to use? He's already a brooder.
So we did have some questions, by the way, from Facebook. Brian sent them to me. Okay, so some folks who are watching this right now, Tracy Fox wants to know who kills Dany, and then says, I think Tyrion kills Dany. That makes a little bit of sense to
I
me,
don't
because
hate
he
that.
has to
It could
fix
happen.
his error of judgment. And he's had such terrible judgment, weirdly, for the last couple of
Yes.
seasons.
Yes. That's actually, especially since it would be an interesting way to spare, because Tyrion way back when said he has a soft spot for cripples, bastards, and broken things. So like, he who is ready to lay down his life to save King's Landing, it would be interesting for him to spare Jon the agony of having to kill someone he loves by doing it himself. That's actually hats off to you for that prediction. Claim all the internet points if you're right this Sunday.
I think one of the coolest options for killing Dany is probably Arya with a face. And there's so many options that you could have. And I know like this kind of goes against the idea that Ice and Fire, Jon and Dany. But it would be very cool if she took, for instance, Grey Worm's face. Someone who can get close to Dany.
Yeah.
To finally get close enough to do the deed.
Yeah.
But do we just give Arya two enormous moments?
That's the
Do we
problem.
have her kill the
Right.
Night King and
Sure.
then have her kill
Sure,
a huge
yeah.
protagonist?
If we want to make her the hero of the story, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah, but then she's the only hero.
Yeah.
Right. But I could see that. I mean, I could see Arya taking her out, or taking out Dany.
Yeah.
Especially when she was, like you said, she was on this revenge quest. She didn't get a chance to fulfill her mission of killing Cersei, and as Daenerys is lighting fire to this whole city, and she's looking up at this, and this, to me, in this amazement of like, I can't believe this is happening, and I don't really like you anyway.
Uh-huh.
To me, when she gets on the horse and rides off, it's like, to me, I saw that as her new mission. Like, she's not going to kill this queen; she's going to kill the other queen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
would
this
be
is
the
the
Green
Revelations
Eyes.
sort of reading of that white horse at the end, with the rider being Death, being Arya. Yeah, it's possible.
There's an interesting kind of religious angle here too, because we know the Lord of Light, R'hllor, has been a big figure kind of in the background of the series. And after episode 3, the Battle of Winterfell, we know that Beric died, and Melisandre said, well, the Lord of Light no longer needed him because his purpose was essentially to protect Arya. And then after that battle, Melisandre had served her purpose, and she died. Jon is one of the last ones that we know was resurrected through this Lord of the Light power. It'd be interesting if the Lord, like R'hllor, wants him to kill Dany, and then once he does that, he just drops dead.
So, by the way, I should mention at this point that you actually are authored Gods of Thrones, a pilgrim's guide to the religions of ice and fire. I can't wait to read that, by the way. I hear you talk about it a lot, so I'm looking forward to it. But I had this theory, which is obviously not going to happen, that the Hound was going to have that ability because he could see into the fire, and he had suddenly he'd had this sort of arc, where he'd come around and thought, well, this is a bunch of junk, but I'll take it because it seems to be correct, and I'll go with it. And even though he made fun of Beric Dondarrion all the time, I thought perhaps he would be the one. I thought that there might have been this, and I still think this somehow could happen, this sort of Romeo and Juliet sort of thing where you've got Dany and Jon, and one thinks the other's dead, so the other one's like, well, this is it, I might as well die. And then there's a choice, and someone has to make that choice to bring one of them back. But now that she's gone nuclear, and by the way, the Hound's dead, I don't know who that would be.
Do we really know the Hound's dead? I mean, he dropped in the fire, and he saw into the fire. He walks out.
By the way, what a Clegane bowl though. But like,
that's the one everyone agrees that was an A+ Clegane bowl. That no one's complaining about that.
It's like so good.
And I knew I was waiting for the fire moment. I thought he was gonna have to run through fire or something because he obviously was still scared at Battle of Winterfell. But I was totally fine with them, just that big cinematic thing of them going into the fire because. He doesn't ultimately.
Beautiful thing.
Speaking of every frame of painting, when they had the staircase where the Hound was at the bottom and the mountains at the top, and then Drogon comes roaring by, spitting fire. That was like you could see that at an art museum, like a Renaissance painting. So beautiful.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny to see Cersei kind of go, excuse me.
Yeah, right.
That's the best meme ever. Like,
sneak by here. I thought that was a great moment.
Yeah. I was mad. My crackpot theory from the last. You were talking about your theories.
Yeah.
My crackpot theory from the last episode didn't pan out, which was a face stealing thing with Arya, where Arya kills Jaime, steals his face.
That
Goes
would have been amazing.
Steals Cersei's face. Steals Cersei's face, kills her, puts her face on. Jaime, trying to be noble, kills Cersei, but it's Arya.
Oh, no.
That's my awful, but was kind of interesting. Like
such bloodlust.
I just wanted more from her. I feel like we saw the face change thing once with Walder Frey.
But
meaningfully.
it was a really good one.
It's my favorite. Oh, that's my favorite scene of the series. I love Arya killing
awesome.
the phrase. But I wanted to see it one more time, and maybe we will, but it still feels like, if she kills Daenerys, then she's the hero twice, and then no one else even needed to be in the episode.
I think we have to do it. Who sits on the Iron Throne? Does it have to be Jon?
I don't think it can be Jon. I don't think Jon will let it be Jon.
I don't think so.
Gendry then? Was he give it to Gendry?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sansa is about as
we're out
close
of
as I can.
Targaryen. We're fresh out of Targaryens, so that line is dead. So now if we're going just with succession, then I think Gendry would be in the pole position. I've long beheld, and this is back when I thought Dany was serious about breaking the wheel and not like really breaking the wheel.
Breaking everyone and the wheel.
Because they had all this set up about like, oh, Dany can have children, and how would you have succession with this system? And then Tyrion had this thing where he's talking to, I think it's season 6 or 7, he's like, nodding some of the other democratic institutions of Westeros is like, the Night's Watch has a way to elect their Lord Commander, and there's the Ironborn have their King's Moot where they elect who's going to be their king, and there's also lots of examples. I actually talk about this in the book in Essos where there's a few societies that elect their. So I thought that they were going for like there's some kind of primitive type of Magna Carta style power sharing, because you're right, like if you have this king queen business, like you're going to have a terrible king every once in a while because you're going to raise a person who's just a complete jerk can't swear as much as I usually do. Someone that's just like is unsuited for the job because they were born into it. They weren't trained for it. They didn't select for it. They're entitled. So like the only way to really break the rule is to give the power to the people so that they can,
Well, maybe. Someone gave me the theory that perhaps it'll be, oh my gosh, Tyrion.
Tyrion would
And
be a good one.
He would take Sansa, who is still his wife,
Yeah.
and she would finally become queen.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't know. I could almost see Sansa as queen versus.
Yeah.
Because are we done with Sansa? I mean,
I
have
think
we
she's
seen the
fine
last
being up
of
in
her?
Winterfell. I hope not. I hope we're not done. We have to address everyone up there. So they either got
That's
to
what I
come
think,
down
too.
or we got to go back up. So they're not. We're not going to go back up. So they got to come down
Right.
at some
I
point,
don't know, I
right?
see
How are they
Sansa's
coming down?
being
Why are they
dead.
coming down? What?
I see-
Dead?
Yeah.
Why is Sansa
Oh
dead?
man.
Okay, so
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
I think
It's
Dany-
Brienne the Mad Knight theory. He's about to lay it on us. Jamie just really
it's
screwed
so
her up.
simple to me that Dany was so mad at Jon for telling
Right.
Sansa and Arya.
and Arya about who he really was, and I think she was just stewing, and that now she becomes a threat. She's more of a threat than she ever was. Sansa more of a threat than she ever was, and I think she would have to take her out. You're the Mad Queen now. You got to take out everybody. That would threaten.
I don't think you have enough time
You.
for that, though.
It may not, but I'm
Right,
just saying.
because
you
maybe
gotta
that's
drag
what
weirder things
pushes-
have happened in this
it
universe.
can cover
so
a lot
far.
of ground, as we've
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah, you can get
Yeah.
from Winterfell
Yeah.
for King's Landing like half an episode. So all
Right.
bets are off.
Jeez.
But it also goes to what happened to Bran. I mean, Bran went off into La La Land, never came back. I mean, we don't even know what he was thinking. Is he done? Are we done with Sansa? Are we done with Bran? Are we done with Brienne? Are we done with Bronn?
I gotta tell you, I'm team anybody but Bran on the Iron Throne. I'm so bored
It would
with
be
that
so
theory.
Although he does do a lot of sitting, so.
Yes.
It does.
I would like. So we've been encouraging people to declare hashtag fan bankruptcy these last few weeks because it's clear that whatever. I almost wonder if like. Dan and Dave got into the writer's room and like looked at all the theories on the internet and said, "Well, we can't do any of these, so we'll just do whatever's left." Because it does
destroy
seem,
the throne entirely and
well,
make it
I mean,
a democracy.
are we sure that there is still
Possible.
a throne room? Because
that's
she
a
was
good
going
question.
hard on the Red Keep.
Yeah,
like,
she was.
It could have just collapsed and there isn't a Iron Throne anymore. It's almost like this last episode. I'm trying to go in with as few expectations as possible, just to see what will happen and then decide how it strikes me. But yeah, I think that's another. I said at the end of episode 3, it's like I really hope they explain what Bran was doing when he was warged out for the whole battle.
Yes.
Because it's got to be like it'd be cool if you find out that he was doing something cool, or if that will be a big part of the resolution of the final episode. But like I don't know. Now we've only got an hour of television left. How would they do that? Mm-hmm. But
There is the vision that Dany had in the House of the Undying.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on that? People now assume that's ash, not snow.
Right.
Is that a symbolic vision? Are we actually going to see that? What do you think?
yeah, because the key thing about that is that she went to reach out for the Iron Throne, but she never quite touched it. So, and then back when people thought it might be Snow from the Winter Coming, that like Snow was on the throne, Jon Snow's on, but now we know it's Ash. Like I don't. It does seem like that vision in retrospect will be the fact that she's not going to be able to sit on it for whatever reason. Because she gets Jon, or she gets Arya, or she gets Arya wearing Jamie, or I don't know.
I'm reading some of these comments. You're right. These are some great comments. This one is just funny. This guy, Roger Hill, says, the best death would be Arya riding in on Ghost and throwing a meat stick around Jon's neck.
He deserves
Y'all
it
hated
at
that
this
he didn't say
point.
goodbye to
Right.
Ghost.
Play with your
Yeah.
dog, Jon.
Come on, Jon.
Pet your dog.
Just
say you love
say
him.
I love you, man. Thanks
Yeah.
for protecting me.
Yeah.
We had no feeling.
Yeah, so and a lot of people are wondering, does Arya take Melisandre's face, or is anything going on? Any king except Samwell or Bran? I mean, the prince that was promised prophecy. Will the finale touch on that, or is that just gonna? I mean, like you said, we've gotten so far away from what George R.R. Martin was writing that are they just freewheeling this whole thing?
It does seem like they are.
Do you all know what the prince that was promised is? Because you didn't read the books.
No.
Oh, you people who didn't read the books.
So school us.
Sweet
School
summer
us real
children.
quickly, please.
So the Princess Promise is one. There's this is kind of like similar to like the flood mythology, where several societies have like these stories about small groups of people surviving a flood event. In our own history, Essos and Westeros has a similar tradition where everyone kind of all agrees at some distant point thousands of years ago there was this time where the White Walkers were taking over the earth, and some cultures call it the last hero, some cultures call it Azor Ahai, some people say it's the prince that was promised, but there was a savior figure that arose and was able to almost single-handedly, some legends say with a sword called Lightbringer, beat back this eternal night, this eternal winter, and bring about the dawn. And one of the things that's been a preoccupation of fandom is trying to identify who that was going to be, and there was some lines about well, if you really translate the High Valyrian properly, this prince is actually
can really do that.
This prince is like, it's not necessarily gender specific, so it could be a princess, it could be male or female. So is it going to be Dan? Is it Dany? Is it going to be Jon? Is it going to be and I don't know, because Arya is the one who killed the Night King.
Right.
So, and that's what the prophecy was about. So it'll be interesting to see if they're just going to discard that altogether after, like, because they were talking about it quite a bit in season 7, a lot in season 6. Are they going to just forget about it and hope that we all too, or is there going to be some kind of clever, in retrospect, actually the prince that was promised was the person that did this? I don't know.
Well, any ending.
I declared bankruptcy, so I got empty pockets full of theories here.
It just doesn't. No one. Not of course. Whatever happens, there's going to be someone upset about it.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Of course.
What would be the most upsetting end?
Dany just falls off a dragon and dies. Like, that's how it is. There you go. That's convenient.
Should have Tyrion make you a saddle. Should have had Tyrion make you a saddle.
Like you did, Jon.
Yeah, that would be.
Oh, Bran. That's right. Bran's saddle.
Right. Yeah.
Is there something that would make you go, okay, that was the dumbest thing? Or is there something that would make you happy?
I think the thing that's going to make me happy about the ending is if they do service to the characters. They need moments that remind us what we love about these characters, remind us where we've been and how far we've come. And honestly, if I get that with some of the characters that I care about, like Sansa, like Arya, if I get those moments, I think I'll be happy for the most part.
What do you want for Sansa?
I want her to be the woman that she kind of always wanted to be, or I just want to see all of this having meant something to her, because she's been through so much.
Yeah.
And I know she's the Lady of Winterfell right now, and that's a nice step. But I don't think it's the ending for her.
Mm-hmm.
You want her to be queen?
I think it would be cool if she turned out to be queen of Westeros. She, at this point, I think deserves it with all the stuff that's gone on in King's Landing with her. But yeah, I want some kind of resolution to her entire arc.
Littlefinger will have been
and this
right.
little battle with Dany is not currently it for me.
Okay, so what would be, that's it, or okay, this works for me?
I was trying to think like Dario Naharis coming from Essos
where is
with
Dario?
the whatever remainder of Dany's army, and just because no one's left, like, I'm going to be on the Iron Throne, haha.
As the really disappointing ending?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, as the one that would just be like, okay. I think so. Like, you covered the character beats, which obviously that's the most important. If you can do justice to the characters and have emotional connection, that's how you really stick with people. But if I want to just go like plot mechanics, I would love for them to have some really clever way. See, I just declared fan bankruptcy. Now I'm taking out a payday loan. But I would like to see them explain what Bran was doing. Like, maybe he was doing something, manipulating the future during that entire battle that's going to come to fruition this next episode, that also ties into the prince that was promised, that all makes sense in retrospect. And you look back, it's like, okay, maybe I wasn't quite happy with a Rhaegal getting taken out by Euron's Patriot missile system Scorpion defense, and I wasn't quite happy with the way Jaime, but I actually see what they were trying to do and how all this kind of makes sense. And looking back,
Maybe he put a bird in Dany's room and made it chirp crazy
Right.
until she went
'Cause he
crazy.
could be
That's what he did.
anywhere. Yeah.
Until Danny was like, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Kill everyone.
Yeah.
Did the bells, by the way, have significance in, I know I'm going like all over the place, but did the bells, like the ringing of the bells make her crazy? Was it like some...
Was it supposed to be a callback to her like walking down the shame? I don't know. I read that somewhere. I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. The whole remember when?
Did the bells
I don't know.
have significance?
I think it was just because that's like I know they ring the bells at King's Landing when the king dies, when there's a royal birth, and when the city's like surrendering itself. So I don't know. I don't know.
All right, so and what would be the happy or sad endings for you guys?
Devastating ending is if none of the Stark kids make it.
Yes.
That's because for what? You know, kind of like my whole anger with the Jamie's arc. Like for what? Great ending for me is somebody surprising like a Gendry, even though he'd be silly on the Iron Throne. Like a Gendry, a Tyrion, a Sansa on the throne works for me. But yeah, something just like cheap and lazy would be disappointing to me. I don't even know exactly what that looks like anymore. But I still have my like heart open for like a good ending. I want to love the ending. So
Yeah, I don't want the ending to be like the ending of Sopranos, where it just goes to black. You know, to see some sort of future, you know, like fast forward.
Like an egg cracking in the basement of another dinosaur or dragon?
Yeah, or something. Like I want to see, you know, how the people who are alive evolve through time, that kind of thing. I don't know. When I was watching this last episode, I tweeted, I said, you know what, I am not even going to start theorizing this last episode because it's only an hour and I don't know how they're going to do it. And I know I'm going to be disappointed by whatever is going to happen because I just don't think you can tie a neat little bow on this last one, and I'm just gonna feel unfulfilled. It's like sitting at a buffet and I can't eat, you know, like everything there.
This is key for him. I'll explain why later.
No. Don't.
Please don't.
It is called Game of Thrones, so it would really bug me if they decided there's no throne, like that. Oh, we're gonna have a democracy going forward or something. It's like no, this was the Game of Thrones. Someone has to sit on the Iron Throne. There may not be a throne. I do wonder, like with Varys sending out all those letters.
Right.
There might be, like, are we going to see the Sand Snakes come up from Dorne? Is something going to, you know, who was he sending that stuff to? Did it have any significance? I would love to figure out what's going on, what Bran was doing this whole time. And I really can't imagine not seeing Sansa again at the end of this.
well, you brought up the letters going out. Where is Yara? I thought Yara was going to kill Euron. That would have been satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I think Euron trying to kill Jaime, that was just...
Yeah, that was just a terrible.
Nobody cares about Euron, right?
No, he's
Like,
bad
He's just
Disney
the
pirate.
dirty
Like,
guy.
why?
You wanted to like throw in a shower and clean off and say, "You're the bad uncle. Go away."
And he's like, you know, I'm the guy who killed Jaime Lannister. No, some rocks did.
Right.
You know, like I just,
Yeah,
I
womp
just-
womp. Actually, I'd be happy forever if like Cersei crawls out from beneath the rocks and still gets to get killed by someone else.
Right.
Just so I can get the death
Sure.
for her I want. Right.
I know. Don't you wish you could just rewrite this? I mean, I think a lot of people wonder is they had so much time, as you said, to get this right.
Yeah.
Do they get so into it? Like they're
Psych
so
themselves out.
inside the story that they don't see the obvious path forward or the things that would like serve people like you who've read every book, who've written books about this, who are like, this is what George R. Martin, because he told them how he wanted it to end, right? And we've all assumed it would be Jon Snow sits on the Iron Throne. At least I have.
I think that the Double Ds were huge fans of George Martin's work, and they were really passionate about adapting that. And when they had books to work with, they did a bang-up job. And unfortunately, Martin didn't hold up his end of the bargain and finish the series, so they didn't sign up to write fan fiction. And what you're seeing is these guys kind of like, you know, like if Martin's it's been 8 years since he last written, and there's no book on the horizon. So like, he had this big, sprawling story that they have to collapse back into itself with these bullet points that he got from Martin. And I think part of them are just kind of over it Like, they've been doing this for an entire decade, and this is grueling. Like, Game of Thrones, the way I understand, is year-round. Like, they're filming, they're shooting all over to continental Europe with multiple units going, and then there's post-production, and then there is the airing and the promotion of it, and then they go right back to the writer's room, and they've been doing that for a decade, and I think they're just kind of sick of it, which I don't think fans want to hear. That, like, your creators of the show are human, and sometimes they're just like, you know what, I hate this job. But I don't think they're, like, derelict, because obviously they're spending a lot of time and money. But I don't know. Because sometimes when they say things, like, sometimes they say stuff that, like, kind of seemingly directly contradicts, like, if you watch these, like, post-show things, like, they say things in interviews that kind of directly contradicts the things that are on the air. Like, you know, they say they intended this, but what the fans got from watching is the other thing. So I don't know. I kind of think they're a little bit over it. They want to go on to their Star Wars trilogy, and there is no great way to handle this because the guy who made it didn't do his job, so they're just going to do whatever they need to get this thing out, get out from their contract, and move on. The fact that HBO
they
said...
better not mess up the Star Wars trilogy.
That's what I was thinking.
You know,
I was just thinking that
fan base is already
please.
That fan base is already pretty feisty over recent years, so yeah, they might be really going out of the fire or frying pan into the fire.
Do you guys have any more questions? Because I have like one more question. Do you have any? And I think you have to wrap it up.
I think
At some point they have to leave and go back and do their job,
they have to do
which
their
is
thing.
talking about this all over again, by the way. Do you feel like complete in what you want to know?
I feel like this brain trust is about like the best that we're gonna have, and like I said, maybe the best thing is just going in neutral
Just
as
keep
best
it-
as
I
you can.
liked what he said
Empty
about that.
yourself
Yep,
and-
just empty yourself.
Yeah.
Let's all hold hands, roll our eyes back in our head,
Go warg
cast
on it.
ourselves
Warg.
into the Weirwood Network and see. We'll do that Sunday at 9 p.m.
Oh, very good. We'll be listening to that, but I will be watching for that. We will all be doing that, I should say. So let me just ask one more question, which is Game of Thrones, to me, is about one of the greatest television series that have ever graced any airwaves. It has been beautiful. It has been brutal. It has been fascinating, and I totally got sucked into it when I promised myself I wouldn't. So I want to know what you guys, as people who have been students of this show, think its place in its legacy will be, its place in history will be, despite the fact that we might not be happy with how it has ended.
I like to, after this last episode, compare this show sort of to Lost, where the journey has been amazing. Because I was one of those people who was listening to Lost podcasts, getting on forums and theorizing with all the fans. But Lost, in the end, I think let a lot of people down. I see that same pattern happening here with Game of Thrones, but that does not take away from the journey, in my mind, at least.
Or another example is like X-Files. There's super passionate fans about X-Files. I don't think anybody that was really invested in the X-Files would say they hate the fact that they were into the X-Files, but like that show kind of fell apart too and didn't really give satisfying answers. So yeah, like I don't think anyone can take away the first 3 to 4 seasons of this show were damn near perfect. And a great execution of the source material. And if the ultimate legacy is it disappointed, I don't know like what the fan opinion of this is a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, a decade from now, because
things change.
It's hard to separate how disappointed you are with like Dany turning into Mad Queen with like in retrospect, if people start and the super fans start pulling out all the different foreshadowing, like will that change how people feel about it? I don't know, but it does feel like if they'd have nailed this, it would have gone down as like probably a top 5 series of all time. Now it's going to be just such a unique thing. The fact that the relationship it has with the source material, the amount of people, like this might be the last time there is 100+ million people watching the same thing on the planet, because our entertainment system just keeps fragmenting further and further. It's smaller and smaller shows, smaller and smaller network. Yeah, you guys. So I this might be like the end of that kind of era, but. There's going to be prequels. There's some people suggesting that like this prequel that goes back into the Age of Heroes, where those prophecies we talked about, Azor Ahai, Prince was Promised, the Last Hero, that they could do something to add some shade and nuance to like the Night King and the others that might retroactively make this show even better. Like who knows? And what if Martin finishes the books and the show becomes like everyone squints and is like, okay, this is actually a lot better. And the show is kind of like a Cliff Notes. And if we'd had the full story, we'd have liked it better. There's so many things that could impact its legacy.
I don't think George R.R. Martin ever finishes these books. Ever. They're just so
Yeah.
enormous. And
Yeah.
he's just not that young anymore.
Yeah, every year that passes, like the odds that it finishes are. But I do think. Do you guys? What do you guys think about? I feel like that if I'm George Martin and I've been agonizing on how to end these books, and I see that it comes out, and like, you know, if my big thing I was worried about is like, oh man, how do I sell the mad? I don't think people are necessarily mad that Danny turned evil. It's just the way. So does it give you like maybe a shot on the arm? It's like, okay, I can now I see what didn't work. I can go back and change. Like maybe he gets a fire lit under him and he wants to get his story out now.
I mean, is there motivation for him to do that? That's the thing.
He's very rich. He's very comfortable.
Right.
Exactly.
But in a way, this is kind of like a good. It's like a draft. You can let them sort of fail and be like, oh, okay, I'll just kind of, I see what we didn't like here, and we'll just.
I just
then
feel
you
like
still get to be the brilliant creator of Game of Thrones, and they're the people who ruined it.
I just feel like there's just so many people who don't read. And I know we didn't read this particular.
Right.
We're
just judging like some people don't read.
But I read other things. I love reading. But I feel like people watch things, or they might listen to them. But for him to write out.
Yeah.
Another few books. I just people be like, eh.
I will tell you, if I get a
pages.
dissatisfying show ending, I'm a lot more likely to read the book ending. So
Maybe you're right. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been the plan all along.
That's the plan. Drive book sales. Guys, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
I really
Thanks for having
this
us.
has been such a great series. It's been so fun to listen to you guys on your podcast. And congratulations on making this your job, because how fun is that? I
It's
think we're
amazing,
all
yeah.
jealous of you right now.
Oh, well,
Well, that's
thank
very
you.
Nice.
I am.
Yeah. I know you are.
Jealous.
Now we're like, let's start a podcast where we talk about podcasts.
Right.
Thanks a lot, and we appreciate it. You guys spending some time. We know you got to get back at it. I'm looking at the clock and knowing that you got to get out of here. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.